Good morning and welcome to our UBC Learning Circle, exploring Indigenous influences in hockey via hockey cards with Naim Cardinal. Today's conversation is presented in partnership with Center for Excellence in Indigenous Health. We'd like to thank the First Nations Health Authority for generously funding the UBC Learning Circle and allowing us to have these conversations. Before I formally begin, I'd like to acknowledge with respect and gratitude that I'm joining you from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. Please introduce yourselves in the chat box where you're calling in from. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Serene Squawkin. I am Syilx Okanagan on my mother's side and Hickory Apache and Belgian settler on my father's side. I'll be the moderator for today's discussion, and working behind the scenes is Cynthia, our production coordinator, and Kira, our program assistant. They'll be in the background interacting with everyone in the chat. And finally, before we get into today's discussion, I'll just provide a gentle heads up that the topics covered may be sensitive or emotionally triggering. Please make sure that you are looking after yourself, and if at any point in time you need to talk to an elder, friend, counselor, or family member, don't hesitate to do so. We have some prompts in the chat if you need additional support. Now I'll turn it over to Naim to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Serene. Good morning, everyone. Really honored to be here, be part of this webinar, and to greet you all. Spend a little bit of the morning with you. So, but yeah, really thankful to be here. I will formally introduce myself in a moment, but I will just get started by sharing my screen and yeah, you see a little bit about my hockey card collection, my background, all that kind of stuff. All right, so oh, I guess we're doing this now. You want to presenter mode? Yeah, so welcome to exploring the impact of Indigenous players in the NHL through hockey cards. Before I get started, I just want to respectfully acknowledge that I'm living as a guest on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. As a guest in this territory, I commit to reconciling my impact on the land and to find ways of living here in a way that reflects the expectations and ethical obligations of the people to live here in a good way. I'm grateful to the Syilx people for allowing me to be a guest here and acknowledge their knowledge systems and relationship with this place as well. I'm thankful to the Syilx people for the ways that they've taken care of this land since time immemorial, so we can continue to live here today. So, all right. Yeah, so just picking up where I left off, sorry, everybody. Yeah, this is my personal territorial acknowledgement. I just want to mention that I've had a lot to learn since I've moved here. I'll tell you a little bit more about where I'm from, but I've never really had to think about a territorial acknowledgement before. I've always lived in my home territory and Cree territory, and I've been out here for almost 5 years now, and really thinking about what my role here as a guest is in this territory and how to respectfully live amongst the host nation, the Syilx people, and really thinking about how I can be a good guest here. So my territorial acknowledgement has changed over the years. It will continue to change as I grow and learn and understand how to be a good guest. But this is where I am right now, and I just want to share traditionally that if I was to come in this territory as a guest, I would what I've learned is that I would have brought with me gifts, and I would have shared why I'm coming into this territory and that I'm entering here in the right way. And a couple of years ago, I was listening to a presentation by Dr. Dustin Louie, and I really gave me a lot to think about, because he was talking about something that he had learned from one of his students about how to present yourself when you're meeting new people, and finding ways of showing that you're coming in peace. So I really think about that a lot, and think about my impact here, and how I'm coming here in a good way, and how I'm coming here in peace. to live amongst these people, amongst the people here, and honor their ways of knowing and their language and relationship with the land. So just wanted to share that with you. So here's a little bit of, about me. Yeah, so I'll introduce myself to you first. I just want to acknowledge this place and territory, introduce myself to you in Nsilchin, and then I will introduce myself to you in my own language, which is Neheyawewen. And I'll just note that I'm still a learner, and I have a long ways to go when it comes to my own language. We'll just get started. What Heshkahalt Esquis Naim Cardinal Kintil Talkri First Nation. Hauntitimtik Wakamagamtik Naim Cardinal Nitsikasun Talkri First Nation Ushinia. Laverne Igua Virginia Cardinal Nini Gigwak. So I just want to greet everyone in a good way. My name is Naim Cardinal. I'm a member of the Talkri First Nation. My parents are Laverne and Virginia Cardinal. My dad is, he's originally from the Big Stone Cree Nation, which is in Treaty 8 territory where I come from. So it's that northern part of Alberta. And he transferred into Tall Creek because Tall Creek is awesome. I'm just kidding. But my mom is also a member of the Tall Creek First Nation, and I've always been a member of Tall Creek my entire life. And I grew up in northern Alberta. My home community is 7 hours north of Edmonton. So we're just looking at my screen here. Where's my cursor? My home community is like right around where this like parentheses is on the map. So we're pretty far north. I always tell people I'm from the bush because I am. I grew up on the bush. I grew up with my dad on the land, just hunting and fishing. And my dad trapped till I was about 8 or 9 years old. So I remember going out into the bush with him, checking his traps in the middle of winter and taking hides and furs and those kinds of things to the Hudson's Bay Company in our home community, and watching him selling furs and stuff like that to make a little bit of extra income for our family. I'm also a dad. I have three beautiful children. My daughter's name is Amelia. She's 8. Our next oldest is Augie. Oh, his full name is Augustine, but he likes going by Augie. He's 6 years old. And our youngest is Alden, who's 4 years old. And our lives just kind of circle around them. They're very busy. They're involved in a lot of sports. Amelia just finished wrapping up soccer. She's going into curling this winter. She also does swimming lessons. Augie is full on into hockey now, so we have a lot of early mornings on the weekends getting to his games. So he's busy with that. He's also in swimming lessons. And our youngest, Alden, he's in swimming lessons, and he's going to be starting back in skating lessons really soon. So we're really busy with them and their activities in the evening. I'm also a husband. My wife or my partner is Melanie. She is Shekwekmuk. She's a member of the Canoe Creek Indian Band, and she grew up in Maple Ridge, BC, just outside of Vancouver. And yeah, we've been together for over 11 years. And I'm also an educator. I have a background as a high school teacher, and I'm currently working at UBC Okanagan as an educational facilitator. So my main role on campus here is to educate people about truth and reconciliation and the history of residential schools, also about Indigenous culture, history, worldview. And I'm also a grad student. I'm in the education doctorate program here on our campus in our Okanagan School of Education. And I just got started, so I don't really know what I'm doing yet. And I guess I'll kind of figure things out as I go. But I'm also a big sports fan. I love all sports. I love hockey. I love basketball. I love football. Really, if there's anything on TV, and the kids let me watch TV, I'll watch some sports if I can. But yeah, I'm also a hockey card collector. So I've been collecting hockey cards for over 25 years. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my collection and what I like, what my I guess my purpose is behind it, and why I really love and enjoy what I'm doing. But that's a little bit about me. I always mention I never really grew up a whole lot with my culture or anything, so I'm always just trying to learn more about who I am and where I come from and what it means to be a Nahel. So whenever I introduce myself, I always say I'm Cree or Nahel first because that's what's going to guide me in everything that I do as a dad, as a husband, as an educator, and also as a hockey card collector. So I'm always thinking about that whenever I'm at home, whenever I'm just out and about, whenever I'm at work, and whenever I'm collecting hockey cards, because I think about those things because I always try to hold myself accountable. Like I'm not a perfect person or anything, but I just always try to hold myself accountable to things and my actions and things that I say and do. So this is what guides me. These are all from my perspective, from my Neheo way of knowing as a Cree person. And a lot of this is around kinship relationality. So one of the things I'm always thinking about is this teaching of Miawakotuin, which I mean, when you interpret it into English, like it's hard to interpret these words just because of the meaning behind them. But when you interpret it's referring to kinship and relationality and they're really what they are. They're laws and guidelines for how we need to behave in our lives and how we treat each other. And it's not just person to person relationships. It's how we're relating to what gives us life and everything around us, the land, the water, the animals, birds, air, everything that contributes to our life here on this planet and allowing yourself to be guided by that and how you want to live amongst everything around you. And also Miawachitoan, which refers to good relations. It can be interpreted that way, but it's also like when you say Miawachitoan, you're talking about having a like good relations, and there's good energy that comes from that. And when you have good relations with people and the things around you. And yeah, one of the other teachings that guides me is the teaching around Kisiwatsuin, which refers to kindness or compassion, and that's acting or behaving in a way that you're always being mindful of how we were treated with compassion at one point to be given life on this planet and how that is being reflected in who you are as a person and how you're treating everything around you. And then also our teachings of the four directions, which teaches us to have balance. There's a lot of teachings in that, and I'm not here to give teachings or anything because I'm not an elder and I haven't earned that right in my life yet. Or I don't know if I will, but just want to share with you in general what guides me and the things I'm always thinking about as a human being and in everything that I do. All right, so this is where this all got started. That's me when I was a kid. I remember the exact day that photo was taken. I think I was about 11 or 12 years old. That's little me, and I'm always thinking about the boy in that picture. Um, I grew up in my community. I grew up in poverty. We grew up in a low income area of our community. So it was really hard for us. And one of the biggest reasons my dad was so like involved in hunting and stuff was to keep us fed. And so I grew up eating like a lot of moose, duck, rabbit. all that kind of wild game. Um, so, I had a lot of different dishes every night: moose meat and potatoes, moose meat and rice, moose meat and bannock, moose meat and craft dinner. I was eating that almost every day. So, I'm really thankful for that, because that kept us going, because of our low income and our the poverty we had in our home and our community. And I always loved hockey. Like, hockey was my first love when it comes to sports. I remember, I always thought of myself, growing up, as, I knew I was going to be a hockey player, even though I didn't play minor hockey. So every year I would ask if I could play minor hockey. All my friends in my class played hockey, and they always wanted me to play. They told me to come watch their practices. They invited me to their games, and uh, year after year, I would ask my parents if I could play hockey, and they would say no. And it was really hard for me every fall, because I knew hockey was starting and I wouldn't be able to play because we were too poor. And I started collecting hockey cards in 1989, and I was a little boy, and really hockey cards like opened up the world of hockey for me, because I was able to, stay connected to hockey in a different way. I got to have a personal relationship with the hockey players through hockey cards. And they were my heroes. Like, I love Wayne Gretzky. You can see my jersey here. I I I was an Oilers fan since day one, but I followed him to the LA Kings, and really anywhere he went. And this was like, I got this jersey for Christmas one year, and I wore it everywhere. Like, I always wore it. Like, you can see, it looks pretty worn out. Um, I wore it everywhere. I wore it all the time, and I was so proud of it. And I just really envisioned myself as a hockey player, but it wasn't happening. And I wasn't even playing ice hockey. I learned how to play hockey, playing street hockey, floor hockey, on the outdoor rink. The first pair of skates I ever got was like a hand-me-down from my best friend, who outgrew his skates, and gave them to me. So I taught myself how to skate. I taught myself how to shoot. Um, and I really wanted to play. That was my goal in life, was to play hockey. And I remember one year, the day this photo was taken, I remember going to a yard sale, and there was this hockey equipment there for sale, a full bag of hockey equipment, and I think it was like $10 or $15. And I picked it up, and I was looking at it, and I knew it would fit me. I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, can you buy this for me?" I said, I really want this hockey equipment. And she said yes. So, I took it home, and I was so excited, and I was like, oh yeah, my mom bought me this hockey equipment. I'm going to get to play hockey now. And I went home, and I put it all on, and I said, Mom, take a picture of me. And she took this picture of me, and remember just making this, I remember mean mugging here, and thinking I was some tough hockey player. And then after the photo was taken, I asked her, I was like, does this mean I'm going to get to play hockey this year? And yeah, she said, no, we can't afford it. So unfortunately, I didn't get to play. And after that, like, I kind of just like, I felt that was it. Like, I didn't want to have anything to do with hockey anymore, because it just it represented like a lot of heartbreak for me. And it was right around that time too. I quit collecting hockey cards. So this is about 1994, and I kind of stepped away from hockey, and um, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do instead. So I started playing basketball, and and really like got myself involved in a lot of school sports because they were free. Basketball was affordable. All I needed was a ball and a pair of shoes and a hoop, and there was a hoop outside, and that's where I spent my time. And recently I had a conversation with my dad, and I was telling him about how busy we were with the kids, and taking them everywhere. And he said to me, he said, it's really good. He's like that you're doing that. I'm really happy you are so busy with your kids and you have them involved in sports, he said, because we couldn't do that for you because we couldn't afford it. And I really wish we were able to do that, but I'm happy you're doing that for your kids. So it is really important for me as a dad to be able to provide that for my kids and just keep doors open for them and help them keep their dreams alive for things that they want to do. And I know that for me, sports has opened up a lot of doors, especially basketball. Basketball is what made me want to go to school. Like it made me want to go to college and play basketball and that entry into post-secondary, it got me educated, and it got me a lot of, awesome experiences. It made me want to continue my education and go back to school and be a teacher, because I wanted to give back in a lot of different ways. And that was, because I wanted to pursue sports and also in education. So, yeah, so I picked up hockey card collecting again back in 2004, and I've been collecting since then. But in 2014, just over 10 years ago, I was just ready to quit collecting hockey cards, and I remember having a conversation with my wife Melanie, um, about continuing, and we kind of had a conversation and talked about me not collecting anymore because it wasn't bringing me joy. And we were talking, and I just sat down and really started thinking about what I wanted to do, and thought that I wanted to have a look at Indigenous players who were in the NHL. So I did a Google search. I found this website called nativehockey.com. It was created by someone named Steve Valerio and his wife, Shannon Valerio, who are both Indigenous. They're from the United States. Unfortunately, Steve has passed away recently, and his wife, Shannon, is a skating coach. She works a lot with the Denver University men's hockey team. Does a lot of power skating with them. But they did a lot of work since the early 90s in doing this history of Indigenous players. And that's where I got started. And I wouldn't be where I am right now, and not like I'm anywhere special or anything, but like my collection wouldn't be where it is right now without them. And I would just make sure I acknowledge them when I get this started. And when I was looking at their website, I thought it'd be really cool to start a hockey card collection, that was entirely the rookie cards of Indigenous players. So I had a conversation with Melanie again, because she's like, she's really helps me make a lot of choices and decisions, and she's my sounding board for a lot of things, and really grateful to have her. So we decided that I was going to pursue this, and it started off with a list of 50 players from the website, and it's just expanded since then. It's over 100 players. I'll tell you more about it, but this is really where I got started with this entire collection, and I'll tell you more about it as we move forward. Just to go over some terminology here. So when I talk about my hockey card collection, I talk about players of Indigenous ancestry. So it means players that are First Nations, Métis, Inuit, or have Indigenous ancestry in somewhere in their life. For this, I'm going to use the term Indigenous. It's very commonly used. People are well aware of it in these days, but something I always share with people is that you hear all these terms, they're umbrella terms. Indigenous is an umbrella term for First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. But you're looking at all these terms, and this is an image I got from Dr. Dwayne Donald, who's a friend of mine, works at the University of Alberta. You look at all these terms: First Nations, Aboriginal, Native, Métis, Indian. I've been called all these things in my life, and one of the things that I always, am mindful of, and I want to remind people of, and I try to do this through my hockey cards as well, is that Indigenous people, no matter where you go, we've always had a name for ourselves in our own languages that we've referred to ourselves as since time immemorial. So always try to be mindful of that and remind people of that. Here's some hockey card terminology if you're not familiar. So some of the things that you might hear me talking about are rookie cards, rookie year cards, base cards, first pro cards. So a rookie card is it's a card that is the first hockey card of that particular player in their either in their like it'd probably be like their first appearance on a hockey card because back in the day sometimes players had to wait years before they were on a hockey card, whereas now as soon as you step on the ice you as a skater you're getting a rookie card, and goalies as soon as you're backing up in a game in the NHL you are you're getting a rookie card. You're getting a hockey card made. So these are cards that are identified as rookie cards. There's a lot of conversation in the collecting hockey card collecting hobby about around what that is, and like there's also like parallels, which people also consider rookie cards, but some people don't, because it's not a part of the base set. So you see here base card. Base card is like any card, I guess like typical card that's part of the main set. So within hockey cards, there's inserts, there's autographs, there's jersey cards, patch cards, there's subsets, but the base set is that full set of cards with the that you'll see numbering on the back of that is just it's all aligned with each other. And then also the first pro card is it's the first time that a player appears on a professional hockey card. So from their professional hockey team. So a lot of the cards in my collection, they're mostly rookie cards, but I also have some base cards and some first pro cards because not every player in my collection has a rookie card. So I've had to go to other sets from other leagues, from either like the Canadian Hockey League, like junior leagues, or professional overseas, or even other professional leagues in North America, like the American Hockey League or the old International Hockey League. So you'll see a lot of those within my hockey card collection. And then in the early years of collecting, most of the cards that you see from 1930s onwards for hockey, there's Topps, O-Pee-Chee, or Parkhurst, and then just depending on the years and who had the license at those times to make hockey cards. Today, only Upper Deck has the license to make NHL hockey cards. So any set you do see out there, any brand or anything, it's all going to be from Upper Deck. That is officially a license. There's some unlicensed cards out there, but they can't use like imagery like from the NHL, like team logos or anything like that on their cards. So yeah, why hockey cards? For me, there's a number of reasons. These are two main reasons why why hockey cards represent something important to me. Hockey cards represent the individual player, their accomplishments, histories, lived experiences, heritage, and culture. So there's an individual story that's represented on the hockey cards, on the front, on the back. You look on the back of a hockey cards, there's biographical information, year they're born, their hometown, where they're living now, their stats, all those kinds of things you'll typically see on the back of a hockey card. And then secondly, there's collective stories on hockey cards, especially with older hockey cards. They tell the story of society and the experience of Indigenous peoples during that time period. So when I'm looking at this hockey card here of Fred Sasakamoose, this is his rookie card. This is from 1954-55. Things that I'm always trying to be mindful of are Fred's lived experience, but also how his story represents the collective story of Indigenous peoples across what we know now as Canada. So you're thinking about, Fred went through residential school all the way until he was able to leave and become a hockey player. And he developed those skills while he was in residential school. But then you're thinking before that, just before this, like 1951, a lot of changes to the Indian Act. Like you're thinking about, you know, you're thinking about the end of the ban of ceremony, all those kinds of things. You're thinking about legislation that requires kids that go to residential school. You're thinking about enfranchisement, all these different things are collectively, those experiences are on these hockey cards and represented by these individual players. So when I look at hockey cards, that's what I see. I see our people being represented on these hockey cards. And, those two things are always in my mind. And so the way that my hockey card collection has evolved for me is it's become a way of telling stories of the individual player and then also collectively as Indigenous people. And I just want to share a quote here from my friend and one of my mentors when it comes to collecting hockey cards, Eugene Arcan. Eugene's from Saskatchewan. Uh, and I'll just give you a little bit of background on that before I read his quote here. So in 2017, my hockey card collection kind of went viral on Twitter. And a couple media groups reached out to me, did a story on my hockey card collection, which was really cool. And Eugene read it. And we have a mutual friend named Jody Stonehouse, who is a member of she's now a member of the NDP party in Alberta. So she connected us, and he wanted to sell me his hockey card collection because he wasn't sure what to do with it. So he and I connected. We had a couple conversations on the phone, and we were never able to work anything out. But he and I have stayed in contact since then, and he's become a really good friend of mine and someone I look up to as a mentor. And we were doing this event a few months ago. A few friends and myself, Tyler LaValle, Curtis Housen, and Eugene was helping us with this too. It was called Indigenous Hockey Card Collectors Community Night. It was an online event. And Eugene is such a kind person. He offered to do a presentation. And when he was talking about it like hockey cards and his collection. And he said, one of the lessons I learned is to understand that, especially with the older cards, is their cards carry a spirit. And we got to appreciate that spirit because spirit is what made their families proud. So I'm always thinking about that, what he said, and like how the players and the families are alive and represented in the hockey cards. So when you're looking at hockey cards, especially in today's day and age, they're commodified. They're seen as, marketable. People like invest in sports cards and those kinds of things. So they're putting money into it. So it's become this like commodified thing, but there's more value to them, to me, because of these stories that they tell and the things that they represent. So that's what I always try convey to people is it's not just about money for me because I don't think my hockey card collection would be worth that much, but it's about the stories that they represent. That's where the value is for me. And that's what I try to share with people when I'm talking about my hockey card collection. So there's a little bit of information about my hockey card collection. There's 105 individual cards in my collection spanning from 1933 to present. I've been doing this for over 10 years, like I said. And it's just been like a really amazing experience because of the like opportunities I've had, because of my hockey card collection and like being able to tell these stories. I've also created a website, which I'll just show you. So I created a website, and on my website, Can you see that on your screen there? Thumbs up, anyone?
Yes, yeah, that looks
Okay,
great.
perfect. All right, awesome. So I created a website, and on my website, like it's not just about like me sharing my hockey cards because it's part of it. Like, because I'm like also still like I'm still a collector when it comes down to it, and like collectors love showing off their collections and stuff. But to me, it's more important to tell stories. So I created my website, and I have a photo of every hockey card in my collection on my website, and I've written a short bio for every player in my collection. So if you you can hover over one of the cards, or you can click right on it, and then you'll see a bio of that player. You'll see their indigenous ancestry, where they're from, and I really want to share their successes because I want people don't talk about these individuals. Like you know, when you have conversations about sports, it's all about like who's the GOAT and like who's a Hall of Famer or all this kind of stuff. But like every single player in my hockey card collection is somebody who had success at some level, and somebody who overcame things in their lives that were created through by colonialism, and their experiences have been deeply impacted by colonialism. To me, like those are success stories that need to be told. So I not only try to like talk about their careers, but things that they've done outside of hockey. So I really want to like share that. And there's a few bios that I need to update, and ones that I need to make. And I'll just be honest, like each one probably takes me about 2 hours because of the information that I read, and then trying to like put it together. Um, so on my website, it's all by era, all the way up to present. So like more modern era cards here. Um, but Yeah, I just want to share that with you. It's an important way for me to be able to tell the story without actually like you seeing me and having to tell the story, and you can kind of do that on your own. And then another thing is something I recently, a term I heard when I was at a conference a couple weeks ago. I was at the Indigenous Hockey Research Network Summit, and there was a presenter there, Dr. Robert Henry from the University of Saskatchewan. He was talking about hockey and how hockey is an intercultural exchange. And for me, I really like that really drew me in because for me, like hockey cards are also an intercultural exchange because of the stories that are being shared. And I just talked about a little bit of that. And you're not here in the room with me, but I have my hockey card collection set up. And under each hockey card, I have a placard. It has the player's name on it, and I try to like my best to represent their community and in our own languages. So trying to include that in the story. Also, the the name of the car, the name of the card company, the card number, and also the information about their hockey careers. So, excuse me. So I'm always like trying to be mindful of that when I'm talking about my hockey card collection and how I am, sharing a bit of my culture through my hockey cards. So that really stood out to me when Dr. Henry was speaking that day, and I thought that was a really awesome perspective on not only hockey but hockey cards as well. Um, and I just want to share this is like a few of my tensions that I have with collecting, well, with my hockey card collection. I always have imposter syndrome, like for a lot of different reasons. Mainly the reason is like I'm not a part of the hockey community. I'm not a hockey player. A lot of people who know me in the community know me as a basketball player. I mentioned that I played basketball. Um, so I have a lot of imposter syndrome, and like I'm not part of the hockey community. So like how do I like, be someone who tells these stories if I'm not part of the hockey community? So I think about that all the time. It's things I deal with. I wouldn't say that having humility is attention, but it's something that I'm always being mindful of. I've made a lot of mistakes in collecting my hockey cards, and relying on like media sources to confirm the ancestry of players. So a lot of we know a lot of media is not a good source, but sometimes that's all you have to rely on because I only know a handful of the players in my collection personally, and I've reached out to a lot of players over social media as well. I've sent them messages on Instagram, and probably half of them reply to me, and like they'll confirm their ancestry to me or say they don't have indigenous ancestry. So I've made a lot of mistakes in my collection, and I've had to take players out over the years. And there's the things that you just learn, and that you have to be able to deal with while you're doing something like this. Another thing is one of the tensions I think about is kinship relationality versus genealogy. My my hockey card collection it's based off of genealogy, so that's why I say players of indigenous ancestry. There's players in my collection who have ancestors who are indigenous, and they mention that they have indigenous ancestry, but they're not specifically tied to any community in terms of kinship. So that's something I always think about as well, and like thinking about, am I representing this in the right way? And I just share an example of that. I wrote this acknowledgement for my website probably 2 years ago, and I've never put it up because I'm just always like trying to be mindful and really respectful of people, and yeah, I'm unsure what to do with it. But I did type it up a couple of years ago, and I'm just sitting with it now, I guess. One of the other thing is gatekeeping. I'm by no means a gatekeeper at all. There's people who reach out to me on social media and ask if people are indigenous or if they have indigenous ancestry, and if I don't know, I'll say I don't know, but I don't want to be the person that people rely on to say who's indigenous and not, because I don't feel that's my place. Um, as well, like a lot of times it's collectors who reach out to me, and I just want people to enjoy their collection. If they like a player and they want to collect their cards, they should just do it. And then internal conflict, I'm always dealing with internal conflict. Like, why am I doing this? Like I wake up in the morning sometimes, I'm like, why am I the one who's like doing this and having this hockey card collection? And like I don't know, like that's probably part of my imposter syndrome, but it's something that I think about quite frequently. And that I just try not to think about, but it's just a part of my head and the way I think and see things. But yeah, here's some early years of Indigenous players in the NHL. One of the conversations a lot of people have all the time is like, who's the first this and that? Like, who's the first, to be in the NHL? But like for me, like I try not to have those conversations, and I'll make a list of players and those kinds of things just so people have it for reference. But I like for me, whoever the first person was to play in the NHL is like it's important, but it's important that a lot of like all of these players are acknowledged because of the things that they were enduring during those times. Like you're thinking about our society, like Canada in the early 1900s, like that'd be a really hard time to live in as an Indigenous person. It's still not easy, but it would be a lot more difficult back then. There was a lot of things that were more acceptable during those times, like racism, obviously, and like legislation directed at Indigenous people, like for assimilative purposes. So, it to me, being able to share these stories, that's what's important. I'm I do acknowledge that, being first is great because you open doors, but all of these players have also contributed to those doors opening for players today, and then also like in other parts of society as well. So that's what I try to share through my hockey card collection. And then I just want to highlight a few players here. So this card here, I'll just run over it with my cursor. This Rod Flett. So this is a card from 1992-93 Highliner Stanley Cup champions. So this is from Fish Sticks. So if you bought Highliner Fish Sticks back in the early 90s, they did this set called the Stanley Cup Champions because it was the centennial of the Stanley Cup. So 100 years of the Stanley Cup. And they put together all these team cards. And this card right here is of the Winnipeg Victorias. And they won multiple Stanley Cups before the NHL was the NHL. And Rod Flett was on this team with his brother, and only Rod is shown in this photo. So this is Rod right here, and he won 3 Stanley Cups with the Winnipeg Victorias, and this is the photo of their 1896 team. His brother joined for 1901 and 1902, and he won two Stanley Cups with the team. And then this is Fred Sasakamoose. Fred is, he's such a legend and ambassador in the Indigenous community, especially with hockey. He played in the NHL. He moved back home, became chief and leader of his community. Played senior hockey for a number of years, and he was a great ambassador right up until the day we lost him, and it continues to be an ambassador to this day. And I met Fred a few years ago, just like really humble and kind person, and just really like giving of his time, and it just showed like the kind of person he was. Yeah, these are some of the early influences on hockey. This is one of the stories as well. This is Paul Jacobs. This is a custom card. Was created by my friend Matt Stewart. Matt is a professional artist. He does a lot of card artwork for Topps and baseball. And Paul's story really intrigued him and another one of my friends. So they wanted to contribute to my collection, and they created this custom card. And I just want to acknowledge Matt. Can you see the screen? This is his website. He does, like I said, he does cards for Topps. So he does baseball. He also does Star Wars and a number of other things like Walking Dead. So very talented. But yeah, so this is Paul's story. Paul has been credited one game by the NHL as playing in one game, and it was during the 1918 NHL season, and that was with the Toronto Arenas. And then there's stories around him that he may have played up to 5 games that seasons with Toronto and or Montreal. So it was being reported in the papers that he was in the lineup, but there's a lot of discrepancies around the story, so that there's a lot of like historians that won't give him the credit because of those discrepancies. But even the fact that he was there at the arena, whether he was in the game or not, the fact that he was there and ready to play, that's a really important story to tell for me, that that his skill was so recognized that he was on par with these NHL players, and really ready to be part of an NHL lineup. Another player I want to share with you is Clarence Taffy-Abel, who's from the Anishinaabe, from the Sioux tribe of Chippewa Indians. Played over 300 games in the NHL from 1926 to 34. Won 2 Stanley Cups with the New York Rangers and Chicago Blackhawks. And then he also won, before he was in the NHL, he won a silver medal with Team USA at the 1924 Winter Olympics. And he's the first American-born Indigenous player in the NHL. And he's the only Native American to ever carry the United States flag in the Olympic ceremonies. And he while he played in the NHL, and for a large part of his life, his parents hid the fact that he was Indigenous. And a lot of people did that during those times. And, it's a hard conversation to have. But that's a part of colonialism, and that's it. And that's the legacy of colonialism, that people had to hide who they were so they wouldn't face they wouldn't face racism and those kinds of things. But I do think it's important to tell his story just because of that fact. He was also a very successful hockey player. But it is important to remind ourselves, what a lot of the players went through, a lot of people went through collectively during those times. This is another player, Johnny Harms, played 44 games in the NHL over 2 seasons. So he played in 43 and 44. And he won 2 USHL championships in 66 and 67. So when he retired from the NHL, he played senior hockey. And he moved locally to the area here. So he played for the Vernon Canadians. And he was a member of their team for a number of years, but he was a team captain of their Allen Cup championship team in 1956. So in those days, winning the Allen Cup was a huge deal. It's still a huge deal to a lot of people, but it's definitely not the same luster as it used to have back in those days. So back in those days, if you won the Allen Cup, you were representing Canada to go to the World Championships. So your championship team was going somewhere overseas to play as Team Canada at the World Championships. But unfortunately, during that time, there was I can't remember the exact conflict during 1956. I will think of it after, but they never did go to the World Championships because of the conflict that was happening in that time. And I'm just trying to remember what it was. But I love acknowledging Johnny because he was somebody that isn't spoken of. He's a championship hockey player at multiple levels, professionally as a USHL player, and then also with the Allen Cup team. And he's also local, so he retired, was living in the Vernon area. And I think it's really important to tell his story. He was adopted when he was young, so he knew he was Indigenous, but he wasn't, the family isn't entirely sure where his family came from, but he grew up in Saskatchewan. Another player I like to highlight for a lot of different reasons, Danny Hodgson. So Danny was born in Fort Vermilion. He grew up in Fort McMurray. Danny is one of the most decorated players at the junior level, even at professional level, that I've ever heard of, and nobody ever talks about him. He is the number 27 player all time in the WHL. He won a WHL championship and a Memorial Cup championship in 1985 with the Prince Albert Raiders. In that same year, he won a gold medal with Team Canada at the World Juniors, where he was also the team captain. He was the 1985 CHL Player of the Year. Back-to-back years in WHL, he had over 180 points for his last 2 seasons. And then he went on to play 114 games in the NHL with Toronto and Vancouver. And he just never could find his way into the NHL. He dealt with a lot of injuries and never really got the opportunities that he should have gotten because he was such a skilled player and successful player. So he wound up playing overseas professionally in Austria and Switzerland for 15 years. He represented Canada at the Spengler Cup multiple times. He won multiple Spengler Cups and league championships in Switzerland. And he's a very, very well-known player in Switzerland. And something that I also bring up often is that I'm related to Danny, and I didn't find out until I was collecting my hockey cards because when I was speaking to someone in Edmonton, and I was talking about my hockey card collection. They said, you should look into this guy named Danny Hodgson. He's like, I'm pretty sure he's Indigenous and he played in the NHL during the 80s. You should look him up. So I looked him up. I found out he was born in Fort Vermilion. And I called my dad and I said, have you ever heard of this guy, Danny Hodgson? He was born in Fort Vermilion. And my dad said, yeah, I know him. He said he was born here and they lived here for a little while and then they moved away to Fort McMurray. And I was like, yeah. I was like, how do you know him? He's like, oh, he's like, that's your cousin. So, I was collecting for probably 5 years at this time, and my dad never told me about him. And it was through that conversation that came up. And since then I've been able to connect with Danny and just have a good relationship. So we talk all the time on the phone, over text message, and it's been really cool learning about his story and his history and how successful he was. And nobody ever talks about him. Like nobody ever talks about like a lot of these players and how great they are and were and the things they overcome in their lives. And then this was said to be from Danny. This is the top 50 players of all time in WHL, and there's his picture right there. He should be higher, but that's just me. I'm a little biased. Okay, and just looking at hockey cards historically and the way Indigenous peoples were depicted. So probably from the 1950s until the 1970s, if you were visibly Indigenous, people knew you were Indigenous. If you were appearing on a hockey card, there's a good chance that you were going to be represented in a way that was racialized, that was stereotypical. So these are just a few examples. Like I've looked at the backs of cards, about 30 years of cards, in trying to see these different pictures and language that was being used. So these are just a few examples. So this is Reggie Leach. This is the back of his rookie card. This is 1971-72 O-Pee-Chee. So if you look at the back of this one here, it says Reg's nickname is nicknamed Little Beaver. And there's this guy on skates here, and he has a headband and a feather poking up here. And then this is the back of another well-known player named Jim Nielsen, who played in the NHL for a number of years, had over 1,000 games. And this is the back of his card, and he's wearing like a full war bonnet. He has a tomahawk in his hand. He's on skates. And it says, Jim is proud to be called Chief. And then here's another card. This is from 73-74 O-Pee-Chee. And this is the back of Bobby Taylor's card. So I learned about Bobby Taylor. I can't remember where I learned about him, but I had to really do a lot of background checking on Bobby and his ancestry. But he when he talks about his ancestry, he just says he has ancestry, he has a family member who is Indigenous. So his teammates called him Chief. And then this is the back of his hockey card as well. He's got a full war bonnet on. He's on skates. And then this one over here this is the worst one that I've seen so far. This is from 61-62 Parkhurst. And there's a picture on the back here. There's two cowboys, and then there's this Indigenous guy here, I guess. He's got a little satchel and knife on his side. He's got a little feather poking up here. He's standing outside of a teepee. He's got this little barber spinny thing here. And these cards, this particular year, it was a scratch off, and there was a comic and a punchline on the back. And this one you scratch off, and it says, "You don't need a haircut that bad, Zeke." So it's implying that this guy is going to scalp him if he goes in this TP. And these are the kinds of things that are on the back of hockey cards for a number of years. And I looked at other hockey cards, and they say things like, this player has like the hardest shot in the league, or they're a great skater, or they love fishing, stuff like that. But when it, comes specifically to the players who are known to be Indigenous or visibly Indigenous, this is the kind of way they were represented on the backs of their hockey cards. So I'm always super mindful of this. And I think it's important to share with people, because this is, you're thinking about when the way collecting was when it got started. You're thinking about like almost every kid collected hockey cards. There's a lot of people who didn't, but there's a lot of people who did. And these are the things that they're seeing. These are the images that are being ingrained about them, about Indigenous people when they're looking at the backs of cards. So I think it's important to remember and acknowledge that, and think about things that we don't want to see on the backs of hockey cards. Here's a few of projects that have come up. Obviously, like my hockey card collection is one of them. I'm in school right now at the UBC Okanagan School of Education, doing a doctorate, and my hockey card collection is my project. I'm going to be using it to, I don't want to say using it, it's going to be a way for me to educate people about all of this history that I've been talking about truth and reconciliation, and also using these stories as a way of uplifting people, especially like within the Indigenous community. I'm hoping that these stories are going to be seen as uplifting as I share them. I also have my website. I also have an initiative called Base Cards for Kids, where 3 years ago I put a call out to other collectors and asked them to send their base cards. So I talked about base cards a little bit. They're not worth a whole lot of money. Like they're probably worth like anywhere from 5 cents to $1, depending on who it is. I shouldn't say worth, but that's the commodification of cards again coming up. But I requested that people send me base cards of NHL players who are Indigenous, so that I can give them out to kids, Indigenous youth who are attending hockey camps led by Indigenous hockey players in Indigenous communities. And then also, as I mentioned, with my friends Tyler and Curtis, we've had some online events to try build the Indigenous hockey card collectors community. So it is like a lot of fun things that we've been able to do over the years. One of the awesome things that has come out of my hockey card collection is I had an opportunity to work with Upper Deck on a set called the First People's Rookie Cards. So I was doing an Instagram live with a guy I know named Ken Reed. He's a lot of people know him. He works for Sportsnet. He's also an author. He's also a hockey card collector. So he and I connected over Instagram. He saw my collection. He had a look at it, and he asked if I wanted to do have a conversation on Instagram Live about my collection, and I said yes. So, and I was talking about my collection. I was also talking about players in my collection who never had hockey cards made. So I wasn't aware, but there was somebody from Upper Deck who was listening. And as soon as I got off the live, he sent me a message, asked if he could call me, said he had an idea, and he came forward to me. His name is Chris Carlin. He used to work for Upper Deck. He works for Collectors Universe now. But he came forward and he said, I have a really good idea. He's like, I think it'd be a great idea if we created rookie cards for all of these players in your collection that don't have hockey cards. So we worked on this project for a couple of years with 8 different players, and we collected this. Or so a group of us worked together to create this hockey card set. So when we were talking about how this was going to be presented to the NHL to get approval. I wasn't part of those conversations. It was Chris. We talked about the calls to action, specifically with sports and reconciliation. So we focused on number 87, which is we call upon levels of government in collaboration with Aboriginal people, sports hall of fames, and other relevant organizations to provide public education that tells the national story of Aboriginal athletes in history. And I really felt like this was a great way for us collectively as a group to meet this call to action. And that was, behind the whole set, and one of the reasons and purposes why it was important. But it was more important to include the Indigenous community in this entire project. So I initially, when I was approached, I said, look, I don't want to be the only person involved in this that, has a say in it. I don't want to be the person that represents everything. So right away, we found a digital artist who was Indigenous. My friend Jacob Alexis. He's very gifted and talented. He has his own clothing line. He does a lot of contracting for businesses, and yeah, he's the one that designed these hockey cards and made them look the way they are. And Jacob's attention to detail is phenomenal. And one of the things he shared with us is like when he first unveiled the cards to us, he showed us the logo, which you see here in front of you. You can see on the logo here. He said the logo is in the shape of a maple leaf because this is a Canadian set, and it represents all the players in there. But if you're looking more closely at the details of the logo, you'll see that there's feathers, eagle feathers. And he said those eagle feathers in a lot of our cultures, like when you receive an eagle feather, it's for something that you've accomplished. It represents a story that you have. And all of these players who are included in this set, have accomplished so much in their lives. So he wanted to include the eagle feather in the logo. And then if you look inside it, you'll see these hockey sticks. So these hockey sticks here represent the Mi'kmaq hockey sticks, which were in the early days of hockey. Those were known as the best hockey sticks. And there was a lot of people who were ordering them directly from the Mi'kmaq for professional hockey. So that's represented in this as well. There's lightning bolts here. So in a lot of our cultures, we, as Indigenous people, not everyone, but we have a thunder beating. And that's what these lightning bolts represent, is that they represent that thunder beating. So there's so much detail just within this logo, and that was all, created by Jacob as well. I mentioned I didn't want to be the only person involved in this, so we had an advisory committee. There were a number of people involved in this. I'm really grateful to. There are people that I look up to, people that I knew would, have good insight and valuable contributions to the project. So, there was 6 different people that I asked. Dr. Wilton Littlechild, Dr. Janice Forsyth, Dr. Sean Lassard, Sam Lascaris, Eugene Arcand, and Bridget Laquette. So I approached all these people and I asked them to be a part of this because I felt that their experiences and insight would be great to be a part of this. And they all, graciously agreed. And, everything that was done was vetted through the players themselves or the players' families. So the logo, the card design, all the information on the backs of the cards, everything was shared with the players or their families. There's a couple of players in the set who are deceased. So we worked with their families to ensure everything was represented in the right way. And that was really important for us that we had their approval for what was shared on the cards, because we wanted like I said, going back to what Eugene said about the spirit that's on the card and, what makes the families proud, that needs to be all considered on there. And then we also wanted to give these cards to Indigenous youth and communities. So we created ways of making it accessible. So they were given away at a number of Indigenous youth hockey tournaments across the country. They were also given away at a number of Indigenous youth events and community events. And they were all free. Nobody paid anything for these cards. It was just Upper Deck, excuse me, having a project that was free for the community and all about accessibility. So there was also one shop that had the hockey cards. It was in Winnipeg called First Row Collectibles, and it's owned by my friend Curtis Howson, who is Indigenous. He's also what's known as a Upper Deck diamond dealer. So because of that, those things, the cards were made available at his shop, and Curtis was so wonderful about everything. The way he distributed the cards, he didn't want there to be cost to people, so he found ways of alleviating, cost and those kinds of things because he was shipping them out. So he made it as best as possible to access these cards. And if you're in Winnipeg, go check out his shop, First Row Collectibles. Curtis is a great guy. Does a lot of great work in the community outside of being a hockey card shop owner. But yeah, next I just want to show you a video. This is a video that was put together by APTN, and they did a part one, part two. I'll just show you part one. And this is a feature on the hockey cards that was played during Hockey Night in Cree. As you can see here, I see the logo, Hockey Night in Cree. And it was also aired nationally on Sportsnet. So a couple weeks after it aired on APTN, they aired it nationally during an NHL game on Sportsnet. But just so you know, I do have permission to show this. So I'll just get it started. And if you can just give me a thumbs up that you can hear the sound and everything, that would be perfect.
In 2020, longtime friends Naim Cardinal and Jacob Alexis received a dream opportunity.
Someone from Upper Deck, Chris Carlin, he said, Naim, I need to talk to you. He's like, I want Upper Deck to create a rookie card for all these players that don't have NHL rookie cards. And I want you to help us put this together.
It was Naim's card collection that got him noticed.
My goal is to have one rookie card of every Indigenous player who's played in the NHL. Some of them don't have cards made.
So work on the Upper Deck NHL First Peoples rookie cards began.
Right away it was identified that we wanted to have an Indigenous designer. I wanted to ask my friend Jacob Alexis because I know how talented he is.
This is a jersey that I designed for the Calgary Hitmen and the Siksika Nation.
A love for hockey has been a big part of both Jacob's and Naim's lives.
For me as an artist, this is everything. I grew up playing hockey. As long as I can remember, our communities, as soon as we can stand up, they put us on skates. And this is our front yard on the reserve. So this is how it was that was life.
I couldn't play hockey when I was growing up because my family couldn't afford it. Collecting hockey cards was my way of staying in the game at the time. When I started getting a little bit older and you started seeing people like Gino Ojic and knowing that he was First Nations, I was 9 years old, and it was sinking in then that this guy is like me. These players are just like me.
Naim worked with an advisory group to select players for the set, while Jacob went to work on the design.
I do the full design and then I dial it way back.
From the time this got started to actual printing, I would say it took about a year.
Digital proofs were meticulously reviewed, but...
No, I have not held the cards. I have not seen them other than digital images.
This is the first time Naim and Jacob get to open the pack of hockey cards they helped create.
I can open them.
Wow.
This set contains the first ever NHL hockey cards for these 8 former players.
Sorry, just need a second.
Just to know like where I was when I started collecting and like the feelings that collecting hockey cards gave me when I was a kid, and knowing that it's come to this, like that's pretty cool.
There's no words. Just having them in my hand just feels like a dream. Like this kid didn't know that these kind of things were achievable. That's why it's a bit, you know.
These cards not only complete a hockey circle for Naim and Jacob, they represent something bigger.
Represents people who have been forgotten about, who shouldn't have been forgotten about. These are good people on these hockey cards who have done a lot of amazing things with their lives. And it's not just like one random card here and there. It's an entire pack that is all Indigenous players. And I think for kids to see that, that is going to be what's most impactful.
So, yeah, I just want to circle back and thank this little boy right here for always having hopes and a dream and a vision. Because if he didn't, I wouldn't be here right now. But yeah, that's my presentation. Follow me. It's my plug.
Thank you so much, Naim. That was amazing. I mean, I know when we had our initial call, it was great to hear, and I think just seeing the actual cards and everything and watching the video and just seeing how impactful it was not only for you, but also everyone you've kind of recruited within creating those hockey cards, and then also just the people who've been interested in seeing your collection and whatnot. And I think it's like great that you're able to highlight like a history that many of our Indigenous youth connect to, because I know both all of my nieces and nephews have played hockey, and it's been really meaningful to their spirit to continue. So it's great to even know like you had such a passion for it at a young age, and even though your circumstances weren't able to actually play, you were still able to like create such a meaningful collection out of it too, and just inspire a lot of other people. Because I think like a lot of our youth don't have access to equipment to do certain sports, and it kind of sometimes that hinders their spirit from continuing to nurture that inner child. But it's cool that you were able to find a way to navigate that. So I really appreciate you sharing your story and everything, because I think a lot of our youth need to see that we can do this in other capacities, you know. But we have a few questions here. Um, the first question is, what is the process of researching and acquiring cards? Does it like rely more on purchasing like a big deck of and then just going through the big pack, or do you trade with other people that also open cards and whatnot? What's the process you've been following?
Or like my purchasing cards for.
Yeah, like when you're trying to like let's say like when they release a few and you know someone's out there, but like 'cause like yeah.
Yeah, so I like if I know there's a new player that I want to get like for my collection or I want to collect, I'll usually just buy singles. Like I don't open a lot of packs anymore, so that was like when I started my collection, that was what I was doing. Like I was opening a lot of boxes and packs, and just trying to go after the big rookies that year. And really, this changed the way I collected. So I don't really open a whole lot of packs these days. Like I mean, once in a while I will, but by no means not as much as I used to. So a good source for me is usually eBay or Facebook groups or Instagram, just buying off other collectors and you know and like the thing is like when you're doing things like that, like eBay is fairly safe. Like you can see people's feedback and stuff. And but yeah, when you're dealing on Facebook and Instagram and other social medias, like it's important to always be mindful of like other person's reputation and stuff. Like you don't want to be sending money and not getting anything in the mail. Um, I haven't experienced that to this date yet, but I know a lot of people who have, especially when there's a lot of money involved.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. And also good to know that you can purchase kind of single cards. I thought it was only
Yeah, that's pretty much how I accumulated my entire set, was like almost entirely through eBay.
wow. Yeah, that's really cool. Have you like also like because you've been kind of working on this collection for quite some time, like have you gotten any grants and stuff to like help even put this like in the BC like Hall of Fame or whatever with the because you know how they have that at BC Place? Um
Yeah, no, I haven't received any grants or anything, but I'm open to it. Just kidding.
yeah.
But no, I have one of the things that has happened in the last couple of years is um, there's this mobile museum that the NHL put together. It's called United by Hockey. I was approached and asked to have some of my collection in that mobile museum. So I sent away 10 cards, and they just traveled around North America as part of this mobile museum, and they visited NHL cities. So they went to the NHL All-Star game, they went to the NHL draft, the Stanley Cup Finals, all places that I wanted to go, but I couldn't. But like my hockey cards got to go there, so that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. We have a few more questions here. So just this participant said, curious if you are connecting with the BC Hockey and their Indigenous Committee and the work they are also doing with ILTPD and with iSpark in BC.
Um, no, I haven't been in contact with anybody, to be honest.
No, good to know. And then we have someone else asking, are there any cards you're still actively looking for, or any cards that like just kind of got away? So like maybe in the bidding war you lost, or
Yeah. I would say like the biggest card like I'm looking for, like I talked a little bit about parallels when I was talking about hockey cards. So with the Upper Deck Young Guns, they have parallels as well, but like I'm looking for a Jordan 22 high gloss Young Guns. So there's only 10 copies of those, and in the world of hockey card collecting, like high glosses are held in pretty high regard. So I missed out on one of those probably in 2018 or 19, and I think I've only seen one surface since then. But as far as like cards for my main collection with all of the players. I'm not really looking for anybody right now. There are players who don't have cards that I know of that still don't have cards. But I've been filling a lot of that with like I said, like other pro leagues like the AHL or junior cards.
Mhm, mhm. And then have you shared your collection with any of the youth, even like in the area or back in your home territory or whatnot?
Yeah, I've done a few displays. I've done more displays than presentations. So very recently I was at the what's the Orange Shirt Society and Orange Jersey Project Every Child Matters hockey game in Kamloops 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And then I was also at there was a play on street hockey tournament in Kelowna. I was set up there. But in the past, I've set up at a few schools before, like before COVID. And then, yeah, just within the last year, I've kind of gotten active again with my hockey card collection and sharing it.
Do you have a link where people can access the full video for the video you shared, or was
Yeah,
that
it's on YouTube. So there's a part 1 and part 2. So you could probably just search First People's Rookie Cards APTN, and you'll be able to find it there. I can also share it out after if you want to share it with participants.
Yep, that sounds good.
Yep.
And then what kind of feedback have you received from the Indigenous community around your hockey cards?
It's been very positive and very uplifting. Like it makes it feel like it's worthwhile and like that people appreciate it and they love seeing like the amount of players and like the way their stories are being shared. Like it's been really, really wonderful is really all I can say. Just like the good feelings you get from other people in the conversations that I've had over the years, like especially just recently. Yeah, it's been really good.
That's awesome. I know we have some locals in the Okanagan there, local hockey players. Have you ever gotten the chance to connect with any of those hockey players that live in the area?
Not a whole lot. Like I've talked to Rennie Burke a few times over Instagram, but never in person. I ran into Jordan Tutu one time at Old Navy.
Love that. That's great. Well,
Yeah,
hopefully they can connect with you to
yeah,
and
that'd be cool.
yeah, definitely get that card from Jordan too.
Yeah.
Our next question is, this person said, that was an excellent presentation. They said that you have quite the passion for sports cards, and what reactions do these players usually have when they see your collection, like for the first time?
Well, like a couple weeks ago when I was at the Every Child Matters hockey game, there was a few former NHL players there, like Reggie Leach was there, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was really cool to talk to him, and like he really appreciated my hockey card collection and the time I put in it. And yeah, just last night he commented on one of my photos because like I didn't know my friend took a picture of he and I talking, Reggie and myself,
Mhm.
and I posted it on my Facebook page, and Reggie commented on it last night, and he just said how much he like really appreciated my hockey card collection and the stories and those kinds of things. So like generally like get a really good reaction from the hockey players who see it. And
Mhm.
I thought it was really cool that Reggie commented on my photo.
That's awesome. Yeah, that must have been so like kind of your moment there where you're like, ah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm happy for you.
yeah.
Um, Next question is, with the Pro Women's Hockey League, PWHL, entering into its second season, have you started a collection for women's hockey cards?
Yes, I have like I have a number of women's hockey cards in my collection already. And when the like the Upper Deck is releasing a set, like a printed set. They said in the fall. So once those come out, I'm going to be like those. I will buy packs of those. But I
Mm-hmm.
do have like women's hockey cards in my collection. Um, yeah, and those a lot of those cards are from Upper Deck Team Canada sets. So like autographs, patch autographs, base
Wow.
cards, like all that kind of stuff I have. But yeah, but I know my my presentation is just like focused on the NHL and that kind of thing. But like yeah, those stories need to be told too. And
Mhm.
I share out those cards like on my Instagram and stuff like that when I get the chance. But there are people I know in the community who have like specifically women's hockey cards collection. And one of my friends, Dan Harbridge, has a collection. It's like all women's hockey cards, and he makes custom cards too, and like for different players.
Mhm. That's awesome. Um, and our next question is, have any of the card manufacturers acknowledged the racism that was perpetuated on the back of their cards in the like early days?
No, I don't think they would. Like those companies are no longer existing. Like
Mm,
Parkhurst and O-Pee-Chee. Like O-Pee-Chee was bought out by Upper Deck.
mm,
Parkhurst, I think the Parkhurst brand was as well was bought out by Upper Deck. So I don't think it ever will really,
mm,
unless Upper
mm,
Deck decides to do it. I don't want to speak for them, but unless they decide, like I'm not even sure they're aware. It's like
mm,
nobody ever talks about it. Yeah.
mm, mm. Definitely. This one kind of adds to the last question. So you touched on racism within the sport of hockey. Do you think racism carries over into the hockey card community?
In different ways, I think it does. Um, like I just think like um I don't know, like when you're just for example, like Jonathan Chichu, like a lot of people have this narrative around him that, he wouldn't have been a great hockey player without Joe Thornton when he he's kind of seen as like a lesser than hockey player in like the way he was talked about in articles. And there's actually a book chapter that's just specifically about Jonathan Chichu's story. It was written by my friend Dr. Sam McKegney, but when especially in the like card community, like people just say like he wouldn't have been great without Joe Thornton. When he was like a goal scorer from the time he was in junior hockey. And that was like one of the scouting reports was that he was a great goal scorer. And then when you look at the history of like who Joe Thornton has played with, nobody else has ever scored over 50 goals. Nobody has won a Rocket Richard award for leading the NHL in goals. And people just like disparage him because because he got some injuries and his goal numbers declined and those kinds of things. So like I think it comes out in different ways. But like I like haven't seen like anything like overt and blatant. But I think it comes out in different ways, and that's like an example of a way it comes out.
Mm-hmm. That's yeah. And our last question is, where could we purchase the limited edition set of cards? This person would like to share it with their students.
Yeah, unfortunately, like they're not available anymore. Like you could look on eBay, but they're typically sold in the range of 100 to $150, excuse me,
Mm,
for a full set. Um, but they're not available anymore. Like the supply has been exhausted and they've all been given out and distributed to the community. But I will say, if you buy a um, game day program from the Heritage Classic last year in Edmonton, they'll sell for about 30 to $40. They have a full set in there. So if you can find like a package game day program from the Heritage Classic last year in Edmonton, you'll get the full set in there. Yeah, so that's a like cheaper alternative.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. It was really great to hear about your hockey collection and how, like, over the years of collecting and kind of finding your own journey with nurturing that passion at a very young age was very inspiring and enlightening to hear, because I feel like we don't get to hear a lot of those stories where you find joy within something that you're not fully have access to. I know that's not a story we don't hear from very often, so I'm glad you were able to share that. And it's very, very inspiring. And just seeing your collection is very cool. And just seeing that you were able to create a collection with um, the hockey card company. And yeah, it's just so cool. And just seeing how far your collection has come has been inspiring. And I'm sure everyone who has tuned in has also been just super like inspired by the whole presentation. And yeah, did you have any closing remarks before I end the webinar?
No, I want to say thank you to everyone who has taken the time to attend and be a part of the webinar today. I was just really grateful that you could be here and I can share this with you all.
Mhm. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Naim, for the amazing discussion and presentation. Um, we really enjoyed it, and we're happy that everyone was able to tune in. And thank you for all who came in person and who all also tuned in online. Just before we end the webinar, we'd love to bring your attention to our up and coming webinars. We have one on October 17th with the CRA talking about the tax benefits and information for Indigenous folks. And then we also have land-based fitness with Alana Cook. She's been on a few times in the Learning Circle in the past year. So check out her land-based fitness on October 22nd. And then we have Zine as a medium for the voice. That is with Dana Belcourt. And that is talking about interdisciplinary art explored through self-publication. And yeah, all of our webinars are free to sign up for on our website at www.learningcircle.ubc.ca. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We look forward to seeing everyone at our next Learning Circle. Lim Lim, thank you.
Thank you.